So last month I did a video talking about Power Rangers Turbo the movie turning 25 years old. And this week, Power Rangers Turbo the TV series turned 25 years old as well. So why not continue that tradition and talk about Power Rangers Turbo and sort of reflect on my memories and what I thought of the series and how I think of it now. Sort of doing a talking to the mic retrospective. So if you want to tab out and stuff like that and listen to me talk for however long this video goes for, go right ahead. There's not going to be much crazy editing when it comes to this video. It's probably just going to be one image on screen. So my memories with Power Rangers Turbo. I've got a lot of good memories with Power Rangers Turbo. I remember watching the show every day when I got home from school. I remember it coming on after Passions, if anyone remembers that TV show. I remember watching, I remember taping episodes if I was going to be busy. Like if I had something going on, I would set the VCR and tape some episodes if I was able to. So I've got a lot of nostalgia for that as well, sort of learning how to program the VCR to tape episodes of Power Rangers Turbo. I remember collecting all the toys. I remember the toys that I owned in the Turbo figure line was the one with the keys and the keys turned, but I also owned other characters such as the Blue Centurion and stuff like that. I owned characters like that. I think I might have had an Elgar or a Rygog figure lying around. I can't remember. But one thing I distinctly remember when it comes to Power Rangers Turbo is getting the Turbo Megazord for Christmas when I was either 9 or 10 years old, and that was a really awesome experience because it was either Christmas or my birthday. I remember getting it for one of those, because I remember asking my parents for it like every time I went into Toys R Us or something like that, because I wanted it a lot, because I loved Power Rangers Turbo. And eventually I got it, and I played with it like crazy as a kid. It's probably one of my favorite mechs. I still probably own it, but I don't know how much the toys have held up, whether they're probably battle damaged and the stickers are peeling off and they're fading. They're somewhere in a plastic crate somewhere at my folks' place, so maybe I have to seek that out and see if it still works here and there. But either way, I've got like a lot of nostalgia for Power Rangers Turbo, and even though people say the season's kind of cringy and stuff like that, yeah, I agree. There are some cringy episodes in Power Rangers Turbo. I'm probably going to name a few later. But like I said, I've got some good memories with this season of how wacky and silly it was. And all the two-parters it had, I remember just racing home to watch, such as the Passing the Torch episode, or the episodes where they got shrunken down and they start turning into fires, or even seeing Bulk and Skull get turned into monkeys, which was really wacky and silly, but later on you find out why that happened behind the scenes, because Jason and Paul wanted to sort of do their own spin-off with the characters and stuff like that. So it's cool learning about stuff like that in retrospective. But Turbo is a series that I don't hate on it. I don't hate on it like most people. Like, looking back on it, yeah, it's probably not the best season, but it's got some good moments. Now, I have seen some episodes of Power Rangers Turbo's counterpart, Car Ranger, and Car Ranger, from what I've watched, is a lot of fun because, like I heard going into it, it was a parody of Super Sentai, and it is really wacky, it is really goofy, where it pokes fun at the tropes in Super Sentai. I haven't watched the entire season, but I've seen bits and pieces of it. I've browsed the wiki to see what's different between Turbo and Power Rangers, but it is very wacky and very goofy from what you've heard, where it's sort of like a fun series, it's a parody series. And some people say that Car Ranger saved Super Sentai from cancellation. That's just a rumor from what I've heard, or sort of a he says, she says thing from what people say on the internet. I don't know how true that is. I think it was debunked by someone who works at Toei or something like that many years later. I don't know if that's true as well, but I've heard that the whole Car Ranger saving Super Sentai is kind of a sort of like a water cooler thing that you hear on the internet, water cooler talk that you hear on the internet. But talking about Power Rangers Turbo, I want to talk about certain episodes that I remember as I browse the wiki and looking at all the different episode titles. Now, looking at these episode titles, some of them are kind of a blur for me, where I don't remember what happened unless I click on the wiki page to see what happens in the episode. But some of them I remember here and there. Like, I remember the 3-part episode, I remember Honey, I Shrunk the Rangers, I remember Passing the Torch, I remember the episodes that the Phantom Ranger got involved, or when the Blue Centurion made his debut. But when I started remembering Power Rangers Turbo was when I started listening to Ranger Danger podcast, and some of these episodes are so wacky with what happens in them. So there's episodes like Carlos and the Count, where Carlos becomes a vampire, Little Strongman, where Justin becomes really strong. There's one that's really wacky and really silly, such as Cassie's best friend, where her dog gets turned into a human and she sort of has this friendship, I'll call it, with the dog that gets turned into a human. It's really wacky, and a lot of these sillier episodes are written by Judd Lynn, the guy who did most of Power Rangers in Space, and the next season that everyone loves moving forward. So Judd Lynn did write some wacky, silly, goofy episodes of Power Rangers Turbo that are kind of cringe when you look back on them, but things that also showed up in Power Rangers Turbo. The Phantom Ranger, the character that's been the biggest mystery in the Power Rangers fandom for the longest time, until Power Rangers Universe in the comics, depending on what they do with that mystery. But yeah, Power Rangers Turbo introduced the Phantom Ranger, where it's been like the biggest mystery in the fandom, where people want to know his identity or don't want to know his identity, and it was going to get revealed, but it didn't. And then in Power Rangers Turbo, there was also the mystery of Divatox's sister. That was probably Demetria. But Demetria, after Power Rangers Turbo, was never seen or heard of ever again. So there was a lot of stuff that they introduced plot-wise into Power Rangers Power Rangers Turbo, that never really got resolved because of the writer shift from what I've heard of. And even though some iconic Rangers got replaced in Power Rangers Turbo, Tommy, Adam, Tanya, Kat, they got replaced by TJ, Carlos, Ashley, and Cassie. Those replacements have become iconic Rangers just as much as their predecessors in Power Rangers Turbo. Especially like all 4 of them that I mentioned. I don't want to say there's some that are more favorable than others, but those replacement Rangers became iconic characters and were sort of coming to their own in Power Rangers in Space. And they even had some spotlight episodes in Turbo that are, some of them are iconic, some of them aren't, some of them were really silly, but either way, TJ, Carlos, Ashley, and Cassie, they're fan favorites moving forward, and a lot of people love those characters and would love to see them come back into the franchise later down the line, and I would love that as well. I would love to see those characters return later down the line as well. That would be freaking awesome. But I feel like I've talked long enough about Power Rangers Turbo. I'll give some quick snippets of what I think of certain things. So, the suits, I love the Turbo suits. I know they get a lot of criticism, but I still love them. I think it's probably due to the nostalgia, but I think they look really cool. Divatox, wacky, goofy, a lot of fun. I like the character a fair bit. Elgar's a lot of fun. That's a wacky character. Gets more wackier in Power Rangers in Space, but a goofball and a lot of fun. Justin, I've talked about Justin a fair bit in my Power Rangers Turbo movie review, but Justin, looking back on him, he doesn't bother me. I mean, I understand why he was there, because they wanted to get a Kid Ranger on because Big Bad Beetleborgs was doing well from what I heard, so they sort of wanted to sort of have a Kid Ranger to sort of mix in with that Big Bad Beetleborgs thing going on. I think that's the story. I don't know, but either way, Power Rangers Turbo, I think it's okay. It's not a bad season. It's a lot of fun. I think it gets a lot of crap from some people on the internet who do a history of it, but either way, I think it's a alright series and worth checking out. So, with that said, I'm going to bring this video to a close. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and don't forget to turn on notifications. Special thanks to all the members such as Swaggerfor and Andrew McCoyle. If you want to get your name shouted out like these guys over here, hit the join button or become a Patreon supporter for special perks and stuff like that on the channel. With that said, I'm out of here. Have a wonderful day or night, and thanks for watching. Bye!
do.